Good evening and welcome to Nerds at Night. I'm Kid Thunder DJ, joined by the Dolph Ziggler to my The Miz.
Fire 47.
Which actually I don't know if I like doing that analogy. I kind of wrote that one with the expectation of Ziggler losing and you being gone, but hey, it is what it is, so enjoy the fact that in something in life you got the win on me. Anyway, relatively loaded show tonight. Sorry for the delay in getting this one out. We have been busy. It's our busy season. We have several shows lined up. I actually mentioned this on the WWE 2K17 YouTube video, which is up now on YouTube. Search for Nerds at Night. But yeah, we're going to have, unfortunately, little breaks like this that are going to go a little bit longer than normal as we go into our busy season with the holidays.
But at the same time, it's kind of good because with the news that came out yesterday, it kind of gives us some time to sit and collect every new info and any new info that comes out the day after, obviously.
Right, and what he's referring to, of course, is the Nintendo Switch, which we will get to. Just for the sake of time and convenience, we're recording under the old setup, so if Fireheart sounds a little muted, I'm going to do my best to fix it in post.
Try my best here.
Yeah, he's still got to learn to speak out and not at. So, anyway, moving on. Let's start with kind of the last couple of weeks of game news. First, the PlayStation VR was released.
Yep, not too long ago.
Right. Pretty good starting market. There's a little over 15 games available for it.
Right.
Now, the reviews I've heard from people are racing games are really good. There's a racing game that came out for it. Now, the reviews I had read said, the ones for Oculus Rift are better, and Oculus Rift is better overall, but that to me sounds a little bit like fanboying, more than it sounds like a legitimate review, but time will tell. We haven't gotten hands-on with it yet. We are, we buy all of our stuff we test out of our own pocket, and I can't see spending $500 on something that's going to give me motion sickness.
Right. Generally, it seems like the way to go is if you're interested in the idea of VR and you want to get it the easiest and cheapest way, go with PSVR. It's a good, solid system. From what I've heard, it fits and sits the best because it doesn't actually strap to your head. It kind of hangs over using the visor thing.
It's more like wearing a visor hat in the summer than it is wearing a helmet or a piece of headgear. So I have heard it's relaxing. I'm going to try to get a full report from one of our buddies, Jaco, if he's listening. I know he bought it, so I kind of want to get a full report from him if he's willing to come on and talk about it at a future show.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Right.
Things like the Oculus Rift, it's a little bit more expensive, and there's more wiring to it and setup. And then there's the HTC Vive, which is that's only if you have the money to spend and you want the premium experience as well as having to set up a huge amount of stuff, because that is drilling sensors into your wall type setup. It's a mess.
It is the full bore. It is supposed to be the premier,
This is still Gen 1 VR stuff, so
right. And
in the next couple of years, we're going to get new models of stuff.
And it's not really Gen 1, it's just Gen 1 home consumption. This stuff's been in arcades for years.
Well, that's kind of the point. It's
right, but
commercial.
Right.
Commercial.
And if this is as far as we're going for, or if this is where we're starting from, then yes, the future should be really good for VR, and time will tell. The most major game released to me the last couple weeks was WWE 2K17 is out. Right. Obviously, Gears of War 4 is out, but we're more PS4 than Xbox One gamers, so anybody who can come up with a decent, thoughtful review of it, let us know and we'll read it. Actually, you can message us at the Facebook page, facebook.com/nerdsatnight, or nerdsatnightgaming@gmail.com. Send us your review. If it's a good review of Gears of War 4, we'll read it, and we'll give you credit for the 4 people who listen to this.
Yep.
But anyway... So, 2K17. Now, if you watched the YouTube video, I gave you a real quick, real down and dirty. I played a match in career mode, and I even have more to expound on that, so strap in, this is going to take a while. The biggest thing is, a lot of the, what I call transfer motion glitching from 2K16 and earlier, where your character hits a move on somebody, they're down, and you go to do something, and your character just kind of hangs there, and you have to wait for the game to sort of catch up to whatever you're trying to do. Those have happened far less than in this game than in 2K16. There's a lot less of that. And it still happens. It's not gone. But it's definitely better than it was.
Right. It seems like they've done a lot better on as far as the transitions go.
Right, they did add more transitional moves as well, so,
like the rising running kick, or like when the person is rising off the ground, you would like run in and just like punt them with your foot.
Right, that's a big improvement. It's less stuff that needs to be done via an actual move, which is a big deal. So,
right.
So that's a big thing, and that's going to be really cool to see if they keep improving that, because it's nice to hit an attack button and do something that's not an assigned attack, but you're right there, and the game automatically picks up, hey, I'm standing really close to this guy, so rather than do my standard foot stomp that's going to look way out of place, let's do a knee strike to the side of the head, or a boot to the head. So
just like a quick snap kick, something
right,
like that.
Something more realistic to the game that keeps the match moving and is continuing to improve on that idea of a TV style presentation.
Right.
Let's see if that keeps up for the rest of the games. Obviously, the roster is huge. Not really. I mean, obviously, new current superstars are on there. Legends-wise, nothing special. There's nobody that leaps out to mind as anybody who hasn't been there before. Goldberg was the big pre-order guy, along with Shinsuke Nakamura. And if you watch our unboxing video, we unboxed the the NXT edition of 2K17, and you can see the figure and the autographed picture and everything that came in it. Great game. The character models look better than they did last year. I mean, some characters you could tell they were rushed editions at the last minute, so they kind of have what I always call the derp face.
Especially like the DLC ones.
Yeah, DLC ones are notorious for that, and it's no different in this one. Yeah. As much as I love Nakamura, his verse grease pose is his derp face. It's not pretty, but it's funny. It's definitely worth looking at. So they also brought back a lot of like creating your own Titantron, which hasn't been seen since Raw 2, but it's obviously improved because rather than having static animations for your character, you use clips from matches so that you can have those break-ins to whatever background and text settings you have that are, moments from your matches of you hitting all your big moves. Maybe next game we'll finally see custom soundtracks come back.
Yeah, I was definitely going to point that out, as they are still missing. And I get, like, the copyright issue.
Just bring them back, 2K. You have one job for the next game. Right. Bring back custom goddamn soundtracks.
Yeah, we've had, I don't know how many years now of a backlog of songs that would have been perfect for intro songs that, since they dropped them out, we have no chance to use. And
right.
It's just a shame, because it's like, I found, like, a song quite literally titled Heart of Fire just at the same time they released the first game that dropped custom soundtracks, and I was so crushed.
Yes, it was quite sad for you. And I mean, sadder than your life sad.
Right.
Anyway, so we're going to move on from that part of it. But now, another couple of great things they've added, and then we'll get to the bugs, because I'm not going to leave those out, is they fixed the lighting to where the lighting is more dynamic and looks better. If you remember, for 2K16, first game with Finn Balor, his entrance was good, but the lighting cues that were supposed to go along with his arm movements just didn't look. They just turned up the brightness.
Oh, God.
And it looked bad. They really fixed lighting and shadows in this game and can really replicate those big moments in his entrance, the
Nakamura's
light
really
play,
good.
Yeah, the light play in Nakamura's entrances.
Especially, like, what I was really pointed out was, like, at the very beginning, when the lights are all black, but he has, like, this, like, underlight that is, like, shining, like, solid white on him. It keeps him like in the dark. It's really weird to explain,
because it kind of gives him that white silhouette.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah,
it's hard
that
to
is
describe,
really cool.
But it was really well done, especially to see something like that in a video game, because I'm sure that takes a lot of work.
It does,
to pull off. So credit given to them.
It does, and it was definitely a well done entrance for this game. So let's get into the negatives. First of all, my career mode is boring. The promo engine that they built up is kind of dull. You don't really get any direction other than trial and error on if you're picking the right thing to say. There's obviously no voiceover, so you have to read all this text of what you're saying. Then you have this limited time window to pick the next thing you're going to say. And I've yet to get on there. They use a bar to fill up how your promo score is, and I've yet to get over half.
Oh, wow.
And I know it's supposed to get better when you win a title, and then you can start doing Paul Heyman stuff, and he's supposed to help you with promos, but it's still meh. The authority missions are still kind of random, so you can be assigned something you don't have the skill to do. Like if it says, here's an example, Hell in a Cell match, escape the Hell in a Cell. Well, if you don't have the OMG moment for breaking the cell, you better hope your opponent does, because if they don't, or if they don't use it, you've lost that challenge through no fault of your own.
Yeah, that sounds like a pain.
It is. And then there's
just the general pain of doing that move in general, because it was kind of hard to...
Right, we had trouble pulling it off in exhibition mode.
Right.
Another problem is there seems to be glitches in my career about who wins feuds and how they keep going. You'll get in a feud, and then you won't fight your opponent for weeks, and then when you finally do, and you win, it'll reduce the feud momentum, which if that happens too many times, you wind up reducing it down to 0, and then the feud's over. And even if you won the match, for some reason, it calls you the loser. So definitely some updates will fix this, hopefully. And another little weird thing that was a cool idea but not fleshed out well, they take whatever your upper body attire is, which makes me wonder what it is if you're wearing nothing, and they make that a t-shirt, and they track that, quote-unquote, for sales based on your popularity, which also based on a few other things they don't really explain to you is affected your score because it affects your multiplier. You have a hotness multiplier. So if you're cold, it's just however much popularity you earn from a match. If you're hot, there's like a 1.15 multiplier, and so forth and so on. And it's,
Seems like an interesting concept.
Right.
I'm guessing it wasn't executed well.
That's what I was saying, is there's a lot of great concepts here that just aren't finished. It almost feels like they had to get it out and they're going to fix it in post, and hopefully that post comes quickly. But I'm still going to not complain as much as I probably could, because the gameplay is there and it is solid. I mean, they added there's 20 taunts you can set up now, but they're not just there to spam to build up a cheap finisher. They have 3 functions. There's a crowd taunt that does help you earn your special faster and gives you a little bit of a damage boost. There's an opponent taunt I'm getting these reversed. That's the opponent taunt. The crowd taunt builds up your health for a brief second, makes you take less damage. Oh, cool. And then there's the wake up taunt that you can do anytime now instead of just while you're waiting for a finisher. That'll make your opponent stand up.
Oh, I figured that was going to be something I thought that would have been something you would do,
Yeah.
No, I mean, you would do yourself, like when Undertaker would suddenly sit straight up.
No, it doesn't.
I thought that would have been his.
No, it doesn't make you wake up. It wakes up your opponent.
I thought that would have been his.
And there's corner-specific special moves if you're standing near the corner. I'm sure eventually there'll be rope-specific ones for taunts. But it is a nice step in it is a step in the right direction towards making the realism really count.
Yeah.
All the creation stuff is up to par. They've really broken out how they determine how much or how many parts have been used and how it affects your part score. The only thing I don't like is they've separated again, which this has been the case in past games, attire from entrance attire. So if you change a shirt, you have to change it on the entrance attire or it's not changed.
Yeah, I can get that, but at the same time it can also be nice because basically it's kind of situational where that's good and bad. Because obviously it's more tedious work, but if it keeps you from
keeps you from having overlapping parts. Like if you want to wear a trench coat to the ring, but you wear a pair of elbow pads that's got buckles on them that stick through, that are costing you a ton of points. Well, you could take those off for the entrance, have the coat on, which would be hiding them in reality anyway, and then boom, when you're in your ring attire, you're ready to go.
Right.
So it's got its place, and I'm not complaining about it existing. I'm just complaining about the fact that they need I think if I had to pick a theme for this game, it's needed another couple of months in the oven.
Yeah, that generally seems like how these yearly games do go.
Well, yes, because they only got a year
each time to do whatever improvements they can. Basically, these will either be fixed shortly, or we'll just have to wait till next year. That's what they usually go.
But all in all, definitely worth picking up. If you've taken some time away from WWE games, this is the game to come back on. You won't be disappointed overall.
Nice.
And that's it for most of the game stuff that we have in terms of other release. So let's get into the Switch. Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
So they've definitely gone full bore with the console-mobile hybrid. It's cartridge-based this time, very similar to the 3DS cartridges. Now, earlier today when I was conducting some business with my friend Yachts, by the way, netted me a copy of Shining Force for Sega CD. Those who collect Sega games know that that's a pretty rare gem.
Right. No, that one was fun.
Yes. We were talking about it, and he's all in. He's been a bit more of a Nintendo fan than I am, you know. He's the kind of guy who tries to get all this stuff day of release. I can wait. So, we're talking about it, and he did bring up a very good point about cartridges if they do it right. It would be amazing if they left space on the cartridge for updates.
Right.
Because that would also eliminate the need for writing files to the system to pre-install the game. So instead of the hour, sometimes 2 hours with a PS4, where a game is installing and doing its initial update, you're ready to go, you jump in the game, you're playing, and it's done, and it's not taking up space on the device itself. Which also means that when you sell the game, it's ready to go for the next person.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of potential here with these cartridges. I think we were talking about this initially when the whole rumor mill was running about cartridges being the format they would go with.
Mm-hmm.
Like size limits or whatever. Cartridges in this day and age really are not limited as far as size goes anymore. They can hold just about the same as any standard Blu-ray, give or take.
Right, and then Sony owns Blu-ray technology, so that also means they don't have to give a little kickback to Sony.
Right, yeah. They don't have to pay out any royalties for the production.
For the technology rights, yes. And that's something Xbox has to do. Every Xbox game you buy is kicking a few bucks to Sony for, now really it's not per game. They paid a flat fee for the technology to code on Blu-ray, and which is probably the only way Sony gets away with owning it as a proprietary technology. But that's getting into a kind of the messy water of technology monopolies. So
focusing back on the NX, now named Switch. Right.
Now, the one thing I will say about it and what they advertised is I've had this theory about Nintendo going back to the original Wii. And I think they care more about listening to the buzzwords of the entertainment and gaming industry and trying to build systems around those rather than really focusing on making great systems. And let me explain with the Wii. Around the time the Wii came out, there was a lot more backlash on kids playing video games all day and not being active. It was really big in the news. And it was a lot of problems. Transversely, on the side of gamers, there was a lot of complaints about this is when we had really realized that couch multiplayers were dead. Right. There wasn't a gauntlet. There wasn't a game you could just sit and play with your buddies. It was over. So, enter Nintendo. Nintendo comes in and says, hey, parents, you're tired of your kids just sitting and playing games? Well, check out this system where you move around and,
there's motion.
There's motion, and one of the games that comes with the system is built around exercising and
sports.
And yes, and oh, by the way, all the best games that are going to come with it are all playable with your buddies in your house. Get everybody together, have drunken bowling nights. It'll be great. And it was. And it worked for them.
Yeah, it hit the market at the right time.
It did. Now, here's where they go off the rails a little bit. We get to the Wii U. And what's really becoming into their own at that time?
Right around the 2010s, 2011s?
Tablet technology.
Yeah.
It was really coming into its own. Now, the problem was they missed the window a little bit, and so tablets had already really started to establish their dominance when the Wii U came out. So it wasn't quite the trendsetter that the Wii was, which is why it didn't sell as well, but it was still the idea of, oh, you like to sit there with your Kindle Fire or your Apple iPod or your, Microsoft Surface? Here you go. Now you can play on this gamepad. You don't even need a TV for 90% of the games out there, and blah, 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 blah. And it again, worked well enough for the fans of that system, but it was still them listening to a larger market, which sounds good.
And at the same time, though, it was just marketed so poorly.
It was, but I mean, the failure of the Wii U is an episode in and of itself, and may very well be the episode of a pipe bomb. Or, in my case, the bonus stage. Yes, I kite the idea pipe bomb from Adam Blampier over on What Culture, but...
Yeah, we got it. I lost my train of thought, sorry.
And I'm the one who's been drinking tonight.
Totally. But as far as like the Wii U goes, there is many reasons why that just did not run as well as it could have. And to focus back here on what we have now with the Switch, hopefully they'll handle things better.
Right. One of the things that killed the Wii U was lack of third-party development. And boy, oh boy, in that ad did they love to show off, everybody's on board, it's going to be great. And you were showing me all these comments by developer companies that when you look past corporate sanitation of it all, or sanitization of it all, really looked like they were saying, yeah, we're going to see what happens.
Right. It's not. It doesn't exactly spell doom and gloom for the system, but at the same time, it's an interesting note, and it actually kind of feels kind of scummy with what they did. Like, because when you watch this trailer, they're showing off things like NBA, and as well as Skyrim, and people that see this trailer are going to watch it and think, "Oh my God, these are confirmed." When you read these comments by the same developers, Bethesda and 2K, they say that we're not confirming any titles right now, but we're happy to announce our support with Nintendo and crap like that. It's like,
which they did around the Wii time. They had said they were looking forward to making games for the Wii and partnering with Nintendo again. Nintendo just said, "Yeah, if you want to, here you go," but nobody ever really got a chance to.
Right, and like no one was interested. And then we have this console that has no third-party support, even though they say we're here. And then these games that were shown off for like the Wii and Wii U, as far as like having third-party support goes, never show up. And it's kind of a scary prospect of, is this going to happen with the Switch as well?
Right. And we'll have to see how that goes. So, there's a couple of other points we're going to get to about the Switch. First of all, the name is kind of meh, but I get it. And
it's good they dropped the Wii.
And I want to finish my thought here real fast about the trend-setting thing.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. Just we'll get to that right about now. I'm going to pause real fast. You guys probably won't hear it on the edit, but I want to pause real fast. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. Like I said, something you guys probably will not actually notice, but kind of like Jin behind the curtain. Anyway, so let's get back to this point about Nintendo and listening to trends. A year or two ago is when they really hit their strides, but there started to be all these third-party, quote-unquote, controllers for mobile devices. And it was either sleeve-style ones where you'd fit your phone in, or they would clip into the charge base. That also was usually the data return for them. And for supported games, you could have a controller.
Yeah, like these little app games.
Right. And they sold okay for a while. They've mostly died off. But what's the big feature of the Switch?
These removable controllers that go onto this touchpad.
Right. The touchpad sits down inside of a cradle when you're playing on television, and then when you want to take it out and make it mobile, you pull it out and you can slide off the sides of the controller off of its first controller base and slide them onto the side of the screen, or even set your screen up like a portable television and use the controller parts, kind of like a nunchuck remote combo. I mean, which are cool ideas, don't get me wrong. But it still feels like they're taking something that existed before and just applying it to their system rather than do something truly trend-setting.
Yeah, I see what you're coming from there. But also at the same time, you have to understand... I like what I see it as is Nintendo's realizing that their main successful market anymore is the 3DS, and they're wanting to try to find the best way they can to incorporate the success that 3DS has had with their new console, and they're trying to pull this hybrid off. And
but where does that leave the 3DS a year or so after they released the quote unquote new 3DS, which, to my knowledge, to date only had one game that required it?
Is that true?
Yeah, as far as I remember, Xenoblade Chronicles was the only one that required you to have the new 3DS. I think that's the only reason they made it, is they just couldn't get it done under the power level of the standard 3DS, and they needed a new system for it, and they knew fanboys would buy it. And they did. I bought it, but I bought it because I needed a new one anyway.
I think the point there is, or not the point, sorry, but the differences that will be between the 3DS and the Switch is going to be, obviously, there's going to be some differences in library, because the Switch is going to be a bit stronger, but there's also the prospect of how it controls, how it feels. The 3DS is obviously going to be easier to carry around.
Well, I think the 3DS. I think what we're going to see, because we already saw it in the Wii U, is we're going to see the 3DS do a lot with connecting to the system to function as a controller.
Oh yeah, I could see that as well.
Which is fine, it worked, so hey, go for it. But I'm not sure what we're going to see in the way of crossover games, and I'm not sure how long it's going to truly live as an independent system after it comes out. And
it'd also be kind of interesting if they maybe like make it where the Switch, like if you have your 3DS with a game on it, you could stream it more or less to the Switch, and maybe play your 3DS games through the Switch, like on your TV.
If they were going to do that, they would have already had that for the Wii U. I don't think that's something that they would, because that kind of remote play stuff's been around for a while. So, I mean, it would be cool to see them do it, yes, and it's a possibility. But I just don't see that being. They would have harped on that pretty early on if that was possible. But let's get off the NX now. That's a lot of what we know about the Switch. If we've missed anything, again, comment, let us know.
Generally,
if you share the show on Facebook when I post it, let me know. We're going to rip off our friends at Real Spoilers and start giving shout outs to people who share the show. I gotta think of our own version of the name League of Show Sharers, so I think just to tick them off, I'm gonna do it as kind of like a Tengen rip-off arcade. So it's, instead of Pac-Man and it's Pac-Mania, only instead of League of Show Sharers, it's the League of People Who Shared the Show.
Yeah, something crazy like that.
Right, but that's either here or there.
I think.
Final thoughts on the Switch. 2 seconds, go.
Final thoughts. Cautious optimism.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm kidding. Yes, cautious optimism is the way to go. Certainly Nintendo thought this was going to be their superstar slam dunk to get them back in the game. I'm not saying it wasn't, but I'm saying if you burn your fans on this one, you could really be hurting. Right,
things are, as far as like console development goes, this might hurt them in the market. They might fall down just to video game development.
They won't go that far. I mean, the money they have, especially, the pre-orders of their first wholly developed mobile game, which is that Mario Runner.
Oh yeah, Mario Runner
will guarantee them money between in-app purchases and everything else. Will guarantee them money.
Nintendo's not hurting,
right? And I just think that this is the point where they're either just making their own games for their system, or they're making a full-fledged system that can compete with every other system in every other arena, which means they could have the yearly sports titles, they could have the big name AAA titles.
Something like that.
But we'll see what happens, and we're spending way too much time on this. We're actually crossing over on the time, so if you guys want to keep this conversation going, leave us comments on the Facebook page. We'll answer them, and we'll keep the discussion going.
Yep.
Let's jump down into retro games. I like to kill time at work and kind of peruse some of the lists out there, and I came across this one about the 10 worst game controllers. And first I had to stop and think, well, you don't get to a game controller without getting into a system. And there's a lot of dumb ideas just in systems. So I just kind of, off the top of my head, came up with some of the worst systems, whether it was because they were gimmicky or poorly done or whatever. And I was going to throw a couple systems that everybody expects, is like the, Philips CDI that had the really bad Zelda Nintendo.
Yeah, those were.
Yeah, but I mean that's a softball.
Right. Excuse me.
Some of these systems that I thought of, and I put a couple on the list, and I'm striking the Nintendo DD because it didn't come out. I was only thinking about it because the guy had found a working one.
The disc drive, you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
But obviously, there's the Virtual Boy, which is the first attempt at VR.
Oh yeah. Basically, like
red light.
Oh,
that's the answer. Is red tone light, because they couldn't afford an RGB screen. If they could have afforded the RGB screen back then, we would have had that kind of 3-dimensional but 8-bit world then, which would have been amazing. But they couldn't, so we got red outlines with shading, and it was just terrible.
Yeah, headaches and everything.
Right.
Basically, it was a concept way before its time.
And it was, and like a lot of those kind of concepts, they went away. Another one I want to throw on there, just for dumb ideas in gaming, the Dreamcast. At a time when home media consumption was changing on the on the fundamental level of the media people use, you put out a system without a DVD player when your biggest competitor has a DVD player, and it made them the cheapest DVD player at the time on the market.
Right, the PS2?
Right.
Right.
2 million plus PS2s were sold. The best-selling game system of all time. A huge chunk of people who bought them never bought a game for it.
Oh, yeah. Because
they wanted a DVD player, it was a cheaper alternative, and they had the option for games if they ever decided they wanted it. And I bet Sega, and that killed Sega out of the market. Another one, and this goes back to Sega again, is the Sega Pika, which was like a cartridge-based system for, you wouldn't, did not sell well, but its whole idea was it was kind of like a hybrid of what we have now with the VTech systems that will read a storybook to your kid, and like it'd have a little laser pen, and you touch a certain icon in the book, and it would say the word. They were kind of like that, because it was storybooks on cartridge that actually had the books attached to the cartridge so you could flip through them.
Weird.
Yep. And then that got me into thinking about the controllers. Now, but before we do that, what was the weirdest gimmick to you in gaming being of the later generation?
Gimmick-wise?
Yeah, like something they touted the system as having that just, or the system itself that was like, oh, here you go. Because there's one I just thought of that's in your area, but I'm going to see if you catch it.
I mean, not so much a console gimmick, but just like a general, like, media gimmick that was around for recent years that just never really did anything with it. 3D.
Yeah. Hey, that counts.
That was like...
Yeah, remember Sony went balls deep with that too, man.
We still have like the glasses, I think, up in.
Oh, we still do, and I still have you have you have the only 3D TV in the house.
Is it?
Yeah, that's the old LG, right?
I think.
Yeah, that's
I will not use it because it will kill my eyes.
Well, yeah, and what was so funny is as far as gaming went, if you wanted the 3D to be effectual, because most 3D TVs can auto translate a standard picture into 3D, the games that worked the best were in 64 games.
Really?
Yeah, because in 64 was an 800 by 600 resolution, and the color palette level they used was perfect for it. So you would get this, if you could get your TV's offset right, depending on how you prefer to look at 3D, if you like to pop out or if you like to have depth, it would look really cool because it could look like, I like depth, so it would look like you were looking down into whatever you were playing. I mean, not perfectly, but a lot better than games that specifically said, oh, it's 3D enabled, like the God of War game that they had put out. And that was just trash and atrocious and didn't work. Here's the other one I had, and I may be pronouncing it wrong, but that Ouya or whatever it was game system.
Oh yeah, the Ouya.
Yeah, it was
it was a kickstarted console, I believe.
That was
essentially trying to be like a plug and play game
Steam
to
box.
TVs.
It was a plug and play Steam box. It
wasn't even that. It was apps.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was a plug and play
no.
Steam box. You could download these games.
Well, no, Steam box is basically was for like PCs and like.
Well, yeah, but a lot of these games were PC games.
Were they?
Well, kind of. They were app and PC style games. I mean, I'm not denying that they had that same sort of thing because it ran on the Android.
Right. It was basically the Ouya was this. It was an attempt to try to bring app gaming onto a TV, and it failed miserably. It had terrible launch. A lot of people had like missing shipment orders, delayed shipment orders, everything.
Right.
It was a complete disaster. It was like...
And then it was bought by Razer on July 27th back in 2015.
It was like the mighty number 9 of consoles.
Oh.
Of Kickstarted stories that failed.
Oh, you're so accurate, but still it's kind of sad.
It is.
But yeah, that's one of the most modern, gimmicky ones I could think of. And then, to take this back down to where we were going to go with this, the controllers. Oh my god, I came up with 10 because I was reading the 10 list that was published, and it was starting to get really obscure because they were adding a lot of what I call single-game joysticks. Even though people would try to use them for other games, like the Wii bowling pin or bowling ball controller was meant for Wii bowling. Yes, it was quote unquote compatible with other games.
I don't think I remember that one. Hang on.
It was a big blue Brunswick ball that was meant for Wii bowling, and I think technically the Brunswick bowling game could really make use of it well. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it's goofy and it's gimmicky and probably bad, but there's some things that were just designed to be that way. They weren't trying to make something,
Goodness, I just found it.
Right, no, they were trying to make something good, and they were trying to make something that would actually work, and it just didn't work. That makes sense. So...
Yeah, that is a weird thing. I'm looking
and
at it now.
Right. I stuck as much as I could with retros. There's a couple of modern ones, but and just some quick notes, and then I want you to talk about some ones you didn't like. Again, for that compare and contrast, because you're so much younger than me, you're draining my life away. Anyway.
Totally. It's my golden life.
For me, the number 10, if we're going to go from 10 to 1, the Xbox Fat Controller. The original Xbox Fat Controller.
The Duke.
Yes, it was too heavy. That's really what it was. It was too heavy, which would make play balancing very hard when you were trying to do games like... I remember trying to play Tony Hawk on Xbox with that controller and not being able to do it. And I used to rock at that game. And then they put out the redesigned one that was lighter. And
it was like the pre-Xbox 360 one.
Right, and once I got used to that one shape, I was as good at it on Xbox as I was on PS1 or 2. So it was like, boom, we're in.
Right, the Duke I can definitely agree with. That's kind of a given. That's almost on every list. Not necessarily a bad thing.
And the number 9 was the Sega Jaguar controller, so I'll give you a second to look that up.
I believe I remember that one.
Sega Jaguar controller. The thrill of typing into a search engine.
Totally.
So the main one,
had the keypad.
Had the 12-key keypad.
Yeah.
And 3 regular buttons and the D-pad, and I believe a couple shoulder buttons up top. Just not good. Bulky, big, and nobody knew what those 12 buttons were for. And I think they released future versions of that controller that didn't even have them.
So was this like a team-up between Sega and Atari? Because I'm seeing Atari in a lot of the listings.
No. Sega may have had input on it, but no, it was entirely Atari.
Like I'm reading like Atari Jaguar.
Speaking of Atari, the 5200 controller.
Oh, man.
And really any Atari controller, because Atari made their controllers cheap. I mean, they did. There's no way around it. But the 5200 was this weird sort of, number pad with a analog stick on top. Yeah, joystick on top, and it was button on the side. It was uncomfortable as heck to play.
It looks like an old-fashioned TV remote plus a joystick.
Right, and it was just so laborious to hold. You just got frustrated with it and didn't want to play.
And then broke it for funsies.
Well, yes. And then, for me, number 7, the Philips CDI game controller. Now, I mean the original one that came with it that looked almost like a controller for those adjustable beds.
I was going to say something like that, or like a freaking massage chair or something.
Right, it had the weird... I mean, it was very much like the 5200 controller.
Another little, TV remote-style controller that was
with a controller thumbstick added.
Why?
Right.
Why? God, I'm glad I live in this era.
We'll get to that. The Power Glove is at number 6.
Ooh. Yeah.
The sensor never worked. It never was fast enough.
1,500 buttons that were useless.
Right.
The codes.
That you had to program into it. It was just terrible.
It's still yet one of the most iconic controllers in gaming.
Oh, yeah. People love the look of it. People would buy them off me to cut the cable off of it and just wear it.
Oh, yeah.
It was a fashion statement by the end of its life. The Intellivision controller was next.
I love the Power Glove, man.
Yes. It was hardwired to the system, so if one broke, you were hosed. Had that weird disc in place of a D-pad. And then, of course, you had to have overlays to know which of the 9,000 buttons on it did what for your game.
Right.
And if you lost those overlays, you were done. I did mention the Wii bowling ball on my list just because it was, just to kind of stand in for all of the gimmicky one-game controllers like the Beatles Rock Band equipment. Only worked with the Beatles game.
Basically almost any peripheral for the Wii.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And then I went down to the next thing that kind of falls on that line. Any camera-based thing. The Kinect, the iToy. Those two, especially.
Okay. Yeah.
Those.
Yeah, I get you.
They never worked. Be like, I'm touching where I'm supposed to touch. I mean, There was a tank battle game.
Oh yeah, Call of
for
Duty tank battle.
no, because it was based on the really good one, like Robotech, or not Robotech, but I know people are gonna yell at me that on Xbox was awesome and actually had like a $200 controller that was like a full tank mech console because it was actually mechs, not tanks. And then they put out a Kinect version of it where you could just so easily accidentally hit the self-destruct button.
Yeah, that was a tank one. I remember seeing all kinds of.
Oh yeah, there might have been a tank one too, but
I know there was a tank Kinect game way back when that was like they. I remember watching this full article of it on XPlay. Remember that show? They were all over like just how terrible the controls were and like how stupidly laid out the button placement was inside this little tank overlay or simulation.
Mm-hmm.
It was a mess.
Right. Number 2 for me was the Wii U gamepad.
And I feel like that's a little high on the list because, like, battery life is one thing. It kind of depends on how much you use it. I never really had much issue using it. And you also have the mention here of how huge it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really see it. Like, I feel like the weight is good. The shape of it sits perfectly in the hand. I kind of don't like.
Yeah, but you said that about the last guy you liked.
Totally.
I'm kidding. He's not gay as far as we know. But no, seriously though, for a second,
like
for you it works, but you've got those big old 8-boy hands.
So do you.
Yeah, my hands are your size, yes. But like Lucas struggles with it. And then remember, Nintendo's target audience are young kids, and
I still think at the same time the whole point of it was more like the family play thing, and then the kids would have the Wiimote or the Wiimote with the small controller add-on
right
to plug in, and then the adults would have used the gamepad.
Maybe, but to me,
for the younger kids,
and the touch screen was always a little bit wonky on it, and there's more than that reason, but those were the two kind of highlight reasons. But
yeah, looking back on it, like there are features on it that they really could have that they don't, like the pinch and scroll forward thing or zoom in. That is something that would be nice to see on the Switch now, and that's something we could point out as like upgrade and add on to the touch functionality.
Maybe
that could be some add-ons they need to do.
Now, I want to give a quick. I don't usually do this, but I want to give an honorable mention to any of the floor mat pads, like the dance pads, the track and field pad. But the reason why I didn't want to include them on the list proper is they weren't bad. Even the track and field pad was surprisingly responsive, but because you're stomping on them, none of them ever lasted long.
Right, they're fragile. You're going to break them.
Right, so that's why they didn't make the list proper, but I wanted to mention them. And number 1, oh Lord.
Oh, I remember this thing.
The Sega Activator.
The old vest.
No, you're thinking of the Interactor.
Oh, this isn't it?
No, the Activator.
I was thinking the wrong thing here.
That's another good honorable mention, but that wasn't really a controller. That was just a peripheral, and it worked. That's what a lot of people don't realize. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. And if you used it right, it wasn't that bad. It just kind of got lost to time. So that's why I didn't include it either. So since he already said it, the Interactor was a vest you would wear. You could use an interrupt line for the audio channels of your AV hookup, and it would allow the bass and certain treble notes to make it feel like your chest was vibrating.
Right,
and,
it would basically play a sound like right into your stomach.
Right, so it was supposed to make it feel like you were getting hit when you were getting hit. Pretty cool. Again, not perfect, but that's why I didn't really include it. Now
I see what he's talking about.
Yeah, the Activator was this like octagon-shaped thing you were supposed to stand in, and it would use infrared beams, and it would be able to detect when you were moving and kicking and attacking. Right. Never worked. Just never worked. If you didn't have perfectly flat white ceilings, it would screw up. So if you had vaulted ceilings, pointed ceilings, ceilings that weren't off color,
popcorn,
forget about it. Yeah, you're done.
Ceilings.
You're done. Poor battery life, poor power management. So some of them would just stop working. Just a terrible controller. The literal worst controller ever made.
Gotta love, the whole 90s. Like, here's all these gimmick controllers that, we have, like, $20 in.
Right. Sega was the king of trying anything to stay cool and hip and cutting edge. You know, they did the most with add-ons to their systems. Like the Sega Tower, if you have the full Sega Tower going, you're 3 fat power bricks deep.
Oh, right.
Just to get it to work.
Right.
Because every part of that system, every part of that system needed its own power brick. But they were also the kings of backwards compatibility there for a while when they had the power base converter that you could buy to make your Model 1 Sega play all of your Master System games, and whether they were on a cart or whether they were on the card. Yeah, so you can't really argue with them.
What was that? The CDX?
Yeah, and then the Sega CD, and then the CD, and the Sega 32X, and then they made the Sega CDX version, which combined the two, and
that one was cool. That was a nice compact.
That could also be a portable CD player, and
yeah, that one was nice.
They really, really, really went for that. Here's a reference you'll get and want to hit me for. It was like the Ruby of video games. Everything could do something else. Yeah, instead of it's a gun too. It's also a game system.
Right. Yeah. No, it makes sense. It's kind of the reason like that, like you were saying, how they try to do anything to stay in the limelight or try to be hip and cool. It's kind of the reason why they lost out on the market by the end of it all, is because they kept pumping shit out, and people were tired of throwing their money down for a year or two life cycle.
Right, which is why I kind of laugh, not just for systems, dude, for games as well.
Right.
This is why I laugh at people who get uppity about DLC in games. Like, this has existed before. Go ask anybody who bought Street Fighter 2, then Street Fighter 2 Turbo, then Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition, then Super Street Fighter 2, then Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Right.
There was 4 or 5 legit, full release, full price versions of Street Fighter 2 that were the exact same story at their core. Same bosses, same everything. So
at the very least, DLC generally isn't full price.
Right. So it's we've been through this, guys. Sorry to say. And there was other little underhanded ways they do it. There was a long era of a Super Nintendo version of a game was completely different than a Genesis version. Look at Shadowrun. Look at Toy Story. Look at Mortal Kombat. Look at True Lies. Look at a ton of games that were just fundamentally different on the other systems, or had a completely different roster. WWE games were famous for the rosters for the exact same game being different on different systems. I really think they weren't matched the same until Monday Night Raw. So, I think that was somebody opening the door. Anyway.
Sorry about that. So yeah, we've been through all our retro stuffs.
Yeah. So, as always, we like to end on wrestling. And first of all, there's I don't know if you heard, there's some guy, Greenberg, Gilbert, Glenn Gilberti. No, Goldberg.
There we go.
They haven't mentioned him coming back at all.
Not at all.
No, right. I mean, totally under the radar.
This is just rumor mill news here.
Right. Well, no. Sorry, he did show up. I mean, he had a little quick 1 minute. Hi guys, I'm back. Sounds good. No, I mean, if you watched Monday Night Raw, oh my God, Goldberg is back, and it confirmed all the suspicions that such as it was, that it's definitely going to be going up against Lesnar, probably at Survivor Series. If all the rest of the rumors are true, he's going to lose to Lesnar, but it's supposed to be them trying both for a better match than they had at WrestleMania 20. I like Goldberg's back. I like that he's making it very clear it's for one match only, because that's how you use Goldberg in WWE. You can't use him as a guy who's on TV every week. He's not a wrestler. He's an attraction. I don't like that he's going to lose to Lesnar. Lesnar doesn't need to win. And honestly, I think it would go a lot farther to use him more down the road if they'd let him get the win.
Right.
But that's getting more into booking. Just right now, I'm just enjoying the fact that he's back.
Kind of sucks to hear that he's possibly scheduled to lose after the whole. I know this is old news, but after they gave him the win at against Undertaker years back, I've never been much of a fan of Lesnar. That was oh, come on, you guys really had to do Undertaker like that?
Right. Now, I want to talk about something, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but we're
good.
getting into our last 10 minutes here, so...
Sorry,
but there's always time for booze. Another kind of interesting thing that popped up several weeks ago, WWE's been doing this story where Braun Strowman's been just destroying jobbers. And to make it a little more interesting, they gave some interview time before. James Ellsworth. And, he talks about, as long as I have these two fists, or any man with two fists has a chance. And usually the jobbers have been beaten and then they're gone. Well, he turned up on SmackDown in a match against AJ Styles, which he won through interference by Dean Ambrose. And then he was supposed to team up with Styles, but got attacked by The Miz, and then The Miz took his place. And then all of a sudden, this, skinny fat guy who is definitely not a WWE wrestler, is getting a world title shot, which ended in a DQ. And everybody's wondering who this guy is, and the fans are loving him because it's always cool to see that kind of sort of sideshow thing happen. And
that personality.
Right, and of course the wrestling pundits like, is this hurting AJ Styles' champion? I'm like, no, because they booked it for once. They booked it perfect. He's not winning on his own. He's not even giving AJ Styles anything that resembles a challenge. It's all set up to push the Ambrose feud, which is finally making Ambrose interesting for the first time since he had won the belt and subsequently lost it. But just to kind of give you fans who don't know, here's I found the Heavy.com had a pretty quick 5 facts about him that were pretty interesting. Like, he's been wrestling for 14 years on the internet, or on the indie scene. And of course, he came up with his catchphrase that got him popular: the any man with two hands has a fighting chance. That's his.
Cool.
Both Chris Jericho and Vince McMahon were a fan of his work, not only against Braun Strowman, but against AJ Styles. He got in the door by literally sending WWE his resume.
Nice.
He's got a Goldfinger-inspired tattoo on his shoulder, because it's not Goldfinger, the Offspring skull.
I was going to say, wasn't that
And the funniest thing is, and then a little side note is there's been a huge movement for him to get an Intercontinental title shot. I don't think they need to go that far with it, where he gets a serious title shot, but I'd like to see him stick around. I think they could do something with him as a long-term talent.
Right, but it sounds like this guy could be a new popular character to show
Right,
up.
I mean, that's where I was going to go with this, is the WWE has a problem with when they get a character they know is a commodity character with a short shelf life, rather than try to extend that shelf life carefully enough that maybe it could cross that very, very hard line into a long-term character.
Right.
They tend to burn through it instead. Really, the last character who could have been a commodity character who shouldn't have lasted as long as it did was The Undertaker. And I'm definitely not saying this guy's going to be another Undertaker. What I'm saying, though, is he could be your next sort of Funaki or Hurricane. You use him in some comedy segments. You give him 1 or 2 legit feuds where he holds his own. You give him one every now and then he actually manages to win, so the fans don't totally give up on him. And you keep him around for 4 or 5 years.
I was say, like they didn't do with Bray.
Right, and you let him milk that for a while, and then he's gone. I don't think they need to rush through him. Time will tell on that, but that's my hope.
Yeah, hopefully he lasts a bit.
Right, and I do need to catch up on this week's SmackDown to see what he did. I didn't see it Tuesday.
I wonder if Amber did.
Yeah, I just read it. I'm sure Amber did. But I just read it and got the results so I could be prepared to talk about it tonight. But from what I've seen of him, he has been hugely entertaining. So, not much else really to go on wrestling. I mean, we could nitpick over the pay-per-view coming up and everything, but really, at this point, I'm just enjoying the fact that the writing is staying strong on both shows. SmackDown is the better show, and it's going to be for a while just because there's more for the fans to really get invested in, because there's a lot of fresh matchups going on.
Any NXT news?
No, not anymore. Than there has been. Oh God, what is his name? Roderick Strong made his debut. He's a big name in the indie scene. They've got him teaming up with Aries in the Dusty Rhodes Classic, which is a good sign that he's going to be heel, which I'm all for. He's a great talent. He's going to be fun to watch.
Excuse me.
There is some good news on the injury front. Hideo Itami had injured his neck when he was dropped on his head by a guy who was wrestling. But it doesn't look like he'll need surgery, and he should be back in 2 months and not 6 months to a year.
Yeah, it's definitely better.
Right. So hopefully he gets a speedy recovery, and that's the last of his injuries for a while, and he can go back to putting knees to faces. But that's really all I got for wrestling, so what do you think? You ready to get out of here?
Yeah, I think that covers all the news we have for today.
All the news that is news here at the basketball playoffs. Pardon me, sir. Oh, wait, that's the streak by Ray Stevens. Wow, I just sounded old. Right. Oh.
Nice.
Right. Anyway, I think that's going to do it tonight for Nerds of Night Gaming. I'm Kid Thunder DJ. And
I'm Fire 47. I knew it.
Right. Anyway, have a good night.
Later, guys.